It's thinking, Mike, so it's just about there.
Okay.
Okay, okie dokie, Mike. We are live on YouTube. We have a quorum of the commission. Just a reminder that if it's easier for you to mute your microphones right now, and then also if you raise your hand when you have a question, that certainly helps out. And then for Michelle and I's purposes, if you can raise your hand if there's a vote on anything, that will help us keep track of everything that's going on. So with that, Mike, the meeting's yours.
Okay, you're going to have to help me because I have the draft agenda. Is there anything before that to take up at the first after? I think you have called us to order. So is there anything ahead of the review of the applicant list and the interview length?
No, there's not.
Okay. Do the rest of you have access to the agenda or the list of things we're wanting to talk about?
I'm not sure I do, but I'll look for it.
But we'll just read them off and as we go.
Hey, Mike, hold on one second. If you guys are able to get that email that Michelle sent, you should be able to hyperlink right to the folder in OneDrive, and that agenda is in there.
I see it.
Okay. Well, the first points that are kind of all of this stuff today is pretty much housekeeping. The first issue there is, does the commission want to interview all applicants? I'm assuming the answer to that is yes. Does anyone disagree? And then the amount of time, as I recall, 20 minutes turns out to be a pretty good length of time. If we set them 30 minutes apart, that gives us a little slack. And I think with the list that we have, I'm suggesting maybe we do set them 30 minutes apart with the idea that the interviews themselves will probably be around 20 minutes. And if they run long, it isn't a big deal. Then I guess first we'll talk about whether there's anybody has any problem with what I'm suggesting. And please feel free to say, because that's what we're doing, is trying to work out how we think it's best to do this. If you have any problem, well, let me know. Then the item C there is, will all the applicants?
Yeah, we'll consider all those, Mike, since you guys are going to interview everybody then.
We're gonna try to interview everybody.
Right.
But I think when you get to C there, will all the applicants be considered during deliberations, whether they've had an interview or not? I think the answer to that should be yes, but I'd be willing to hear a discussion on it if there is any. If an applicant is unable to be interviewed for whatever reason, it seems to me we should consider all applicants, whether and we want to interview them, but we really should consider all of them, whether we are able to successfully interview them or not. And that's talking about somebody who's out of town or unavailable for whatever reason. And then on how we're going to select who gets or what order the interviews come in. What we did the last time for the benefit of you folks in 3, what we did last time was just let the Doug and Michelle or let Doug be responsible for getting them set in an order, and he was doing it randomly. And then once in a while, you'll have someone says that I can only do it in the morning or I can only do it in the afternoon, and just let him adjust for that. I guess I don't see any advantage to an applicant where they are in the order. If someone has a problem with that, why tell me so. Now we're going to have to do a little talking on this next one. October 5 and 6 or 13 and 14. First thing I'd say is, I think we're only going to need one day. If we do 5 in the morning, 4 in the afternoon, and then review all the materials that we've obtained in the course of our investigation and the investigation that others have done for us, and then make our decision, I don't see why we couldn't do all that in one day. Probably go up the night before and to Topeka, and then I guess you got a key to get us in the judicial center, haven't you, Doug?
I've got the golden key, Mike.
Okay, then I think if we were there the night before, and I know some of you, like Terry, you probably just drive over, but if we would come in and start fairly early, and by fairly early, what am I thinking, 8:30 or something like that, or 9, Doug, what do you think?
I say, and Mike, in the OneDrive was a proposed possible timeline of this, and we had 11 candidates, so I think if we can get 6 done in the morning and 5 in the afternoon, or however we switch that, 7 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon. If we started by 8, I believe that we would have plenty of time in the afternoon to get everything finished. That's with a 30-minute interview. So I do believe that we can get everything into one day, and that's a starting time of 8 o'clock for the meeting and the first interview at 8:30. So we can certainly adjust that if the commission wants to, but I thought a starting time of the meeting at 8 and then the first interview at 8:30 is what I thought would be a good schedule.
Do you think a chief will want to come and talk to us? Will all want to see us?
And she probably will, I think, for the benefit of the new commission members, because we have a new commission, she will probably want to attend. And so that's part of the reason that we have that larger gap at the beginning that I don't think we probably had on our second set of interviews, where we had already talked to the chiefs in the process. And so I think the Chief Justice will probably want to, with your ask if you would want us to ask her to come and address the commission at 8 o'clock, then she would probably be more than happy to do that. And she would be there and she would stand for questions also. And so that would take a little bit of time. And so that's kind of why we left a little bit more time at the beginning of the meeting.
Is there anyone that couldn't handle that schedule? By that, I mean, starting at 8.
Carol?
I just have one comment. I love the idea of doing it in one day, simply because I do teach every Tuesday morning. And so then I wouldn't have to give my students an outside assignment, because I am doing in-person teaching at this point in time.
Okay, well, I really think we can do it. I don't think we need 2 days at all. Dennis, didn't you have, when we talked before, Dennis, didn't you have some concern about some of these dates that we put down here? I'm looking now to see.
I think I'm good, Mike.
Are you good for any of those 4 days?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I must have been
I'm
wrong.
not.
Excuse me?
I'm available on the 5th and 6th, but I'm not available on the 13th and 14th.
Well, it sounds to me like we ought to try to do it on the 5th. If Carol wants to teach school on the 6th and you're not available the next weekend, it kind of looks like the 5th, doesn't it?
It does.
Is anybody that can't do it on the 5th of October? Okay, well, that gives us about a month. I don't, of course, I'm not planning on doing the work, but I don't think it'll be any problem to get 2 or 3 candidates investigated and get prepared for your part of it in a month, will it? Does anybody have a problem with that? Okay. Well, Douglas.
Mike, the only concern I have is whether, and Doug can maybe answer this, all the background information can be gathered that quickly.
Yeah, that's a good point. What do you think, Doug?
I think if we have a full week, we should be able to get everything back by the end of next week. If not by the 12th, you guys would have almost three solid weeks of the information that we would get from our investigations. I don't think anything took, now that we've got the social media thing figured out, I think they are under contract are supposed to get that back by 4 days unless they would run into a catastrophic of some sort emergency. And so, I think a week for everything. I don't know if, because we have Michelle who does all the judge checks. So I know that one's going to be, and so, yeah, I think a week is plenty. So you guys would have all the background information by Monday, the 12th, probably.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm in the wrong month. My bad. Monday, the 14th.
Carol and Katie, what we're talking about here is you're going to be assigned as a team, either 2 or 3 candidates. We've got 11, I think. So that'd be, some people will have 3, some people have 2. You two will have, sounds to me like probably 3 candidates. I never give myself any work to do, but I'll be available to help you if you need anything. But then the point is for you to review the materials and to do the investigation that comes out of the application itself, and whatever else you think you need to come up with an investigation and an evaluation that you can prepare and send Michelle so that it can be included in the materials that we receive about the 3 people that you are investigating. So what we're saying is you need to talk to anywhere from a half a dozen. You need to read, of course, all the material, and then you need to talk to some half a dozen to 10 or whatever people to get comfortable on an evaluation of the people that you're going to be both investigating, preparing a written report on, and then introducing at the interviews. And we're talking about you having 3 weeks to do that. That's what we're doing here. That's what we're talking about. If there's any question or any problem about that, why, this would be a good time to tell me.
By what date would you want us to submit the written reports or written memos we have for the other candidates? What's the timeline for those materials if we're doing interviews on the 5th?
We didn't set a deadline. It's just as soon as you finish one, or as soon as you finish anything that constitutes investigation on any of these people, just send it to Michelle and have it included in our materials. Michelle will include it in our materials. And so you don't wait till you get them all done. As soon as you do something that constitutes investigation that you want the commission to consider, you go ahead and send it to Michelle and let her include it. So
that could be on a daily basis. We could be submitting.
Yeah. It might,
okay.
I think we might work Michelle a little bit, but that's the way we would prefer to do it. But see, then that gives the other members of the commission a chance to read with you as you're doing your work, and as you're turning things in, the other members of the commission will be looking every day or two and see what's come in the last couple of days that they ought to review to help them be prepared for the interview and ultimately the selection.
Hey, Linda, did you have something?
Well, I wanted to comment on the interview. I can do it later or now, whichever.
Be fine. I think the reason maybe to do it now, Linda, is that we're asking Carol and Katie to talk about something they haven't done yet. So
right.
If you have something about it, well, say it.
I just wanted to comment that in the past, applicants have done made fairly elaborate arrangements to be interviewed. You remember the individual last time who was in a foreign country in the time before. then someone was in South America and we interviewed. So it seems to me with all the technology that we have available, for example, Terry's at 6:30 in the morning in California, but he's made arrangements to be, I just think it would imply that we are trying to be fair to all parties to afford an opportunity for an interview, if at all possible.
Yeah.
Terry, do you have something?
I did. I wanted to confirm with everyone, or perhaps folks wouldn't want this, but my view would be that I would hope we would still have the reference materials for the repeat candidates that were prepared by prior commissions. Is that something that we still want? There are
That's a
several
really good-
repeat candidates.
Yes, yes.
That's a really good point. It seems to me that we do want it, don't we? Linda's indicating we do.
So
It
Terry, you
seems to me
want,
that we do, and I think that's a good idea. Can you get that stuff for us?
yeah, we can, do you want their prior reference letters for the candidates who have applied in the past? Or all materials, Terry? What were you after there?
I guess my preference would be all materials, but what's most important to me is the reports of prior commissions, the reports that all of us write and prior commissioners have written. Those are the most helpful to me.
As well, Terry, the prior credit and investigatory report on the internet activity of the applicant. Those prior people who have applied, I think that we ought to be getting all of that information in their current packet.
I agree. Does anyone have any objection or concern about it? I think it's a really good suggestion.
Finally,
Okay, can you do
if
it,
I may, Mike, to our two new members of the commission, your investigative report is really critical for the rest of us to be able to streamline the work that we do. With only 11 candidates, we ought to be able to, everyone look at everything in detail. But the investigative report of fellow commissioners gives me a chance to review the materials that you've put together and also communicate directly with you on any input that other people have given to me reference the candidate, so that it can go in your investigative report, which is not a public record. And I think it's really important that we find out the information in our official report so that we can then discuss it when we deliberate.
Okay, is there any question about that?
Terry?
Well, one other point, I'm guessing, maybe not, but I'm guessing that Carol and Katie might benefit from reading the prior reports on the prior candidates fairly soon so that they can get an idea of the format that we've used in the past. You can use whatever format you want, of course, but to see the sort of format that we've come up with over time might be helpful to you as you decide how you want to write your reports.
What I can do is go ahead right now and go into the ones that have applied before and just create a folder with them that says prior reports. And I'll just put everything in there. So that is the prior investigative reports from the commission members. And then it's my understanding you were also wanting prior credit checks, everything that was done before. And I'll just have their OneDrive that says prior reports. And I'll go ahead and do that right now so that as you're getting ready to do your investigative reports, you'll have the prior reports from the very beginning. I can do that today.
Super. Katie, did you have something else?
Just briefly, and Terry, thank you. I appreciate that. It is true that we would appreciate having that soon. And then so to Jerry's point, I just want to be clear. If Jerry has information about a candidate that Carol and I are tasked with investigating, is Jerry going to prepare his own written report to submit to the commission, or is the assumption that we would then incorporate that into our written report? If he has separate information that comes into that he learns of about a candidate that he's not assigned, will he do a separate report, or do we incorporate that into ours?
Well, it will be kind of, we've had some where, for example, if I went out and interviewed someone in connection with one of your candidates, which I might do, I would just dictate a report and put it in the file myself. I wouldn't require you to do it. On the other hand, Katie, there might be a situation where I would say, have you talked to so-and-so? And you might say, haven't talked to her yet. Then I would say, well, why don't you talk to her and see what she adds? Then I'm not going to report on that one. I'm going to figure that's in your report. But it isn't terribly formal. We're not trying to be formal. We're just trying to be sure we get all the information captured and in the files so that everybody will have it to look at before we interview. Does that answer, you think? Okay. Anything else?
Lois, Linda?
Yes. Mike, for Michelle's benefit, there are some applicants who have applied more than once for this position. So I don't know if you want to go back to other previous times, but you just.
I guess that's a question of how far you want us to go back then.
Just go back to our stuff.
Okay, for the last 2 sessions then, we can certainly.
Because I don't know how they did it before. Let's just go back to our stuff.
Okay.
Anything else? Good point, Linda. Good. Okay, where are we on these?
Well, and I'll take it from here. I certainly hate to have this conversation, but I think when we are in the Judicial Center, there will be proper social distancing. We'll have you guys separated out so there is sufficient distance between you. Masks are required, and so we'll have to remember that and leave it. Let's see, what is it? Oh, and so the question is, if somebody I put this question on, Mike, I'm not sure if I put this on there or not, but if somebody objects to an in-person interview and wants to do it by video, if Linda, you raised that point, we can accommodate that. And is that an accommodation you want to make, that if somebody wants to be by video, just whatever feels uncomfortable coming in person, that we could do that by video? And if that is a question, do you guys want us to make that an option to people, or how do you want us to handle that? If we make one exception, it opens the can, but do you want even to make that option to begin with? It's up to you. Go ahead, Linda.
Are courts in session? Are attorneys appearing in person for court sessions?
Most district courts are still on a remote basis, but they're getting closer and closer to submitting a plan that they can accommodate all the health requirements right now. So they're getting closer and closer to having in-person hearings, but I don't believe anybody's having any type of trials right now. But there are certain in-person things that are happening, but no civil or criminal trials yet.
What about in the Judicial Center?
There are no here. We are still under what's closed by appointment only. So we are kind of a hybrid right now, as to we're not having anything we are for all intents and purposes closed, but people
Linda,
can appointment to come here.
Excuse me, Linda, I'm assuming that means that we might very well be the only people in the building, if you're thinking about the Judicial Center, and we can be however many feet it is apart, plus wearing masks and all that good stuff. Now that being said, I don't know that we need to offer people the opportunity, but I think that we should allow them to be by video. That would be my vote. But I think that's not something for me to decide. That's something for all of you to decide.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think that while the court may dictate to the court system what they're going to do, they can't dictate to us. We're our own constitutional commission. And I do not want to interview someone behind a mask. I don't want to be interviewing someone who's hiding behind a mask. And I want them to be able to see and me enunciate my questions clearly without a mask. And I think that's the right thing to do. I'll put my mask back on as soon as I'm done talking, if that's what the commission wants to do. But I think we as a commission decide our own damn policy on how we're going to interview these people.
Well, I don't disagree, Jerry, but with respect, we are in their building and they control what we are doing in their building. So we can argue back and forth about that. And not that the commission can decide what it wants to do, but there are certain policies for this building. So
I think it's important that we make video interviewing available. You know, we have to understand that we don't know by October if COVID will be worse or will be better. And so I think we shouldn't eliminate candidates or force them to come to the building if they feel uncomfortable. I think that they should be able to interview by Zoom or however we set it up. I'm not saying that I want them to, I'm just saying that it should be their choice. And if that's how they want to do it, then we should allow it.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking, Gloria, that we just, if they asked us, we would make arrangements. But you're saying probably be better to just go ahead and offer it initially as an option. Is that what you're saying?
I think so, because different people will react differently and some won't ask, even though they really want to do it that way.
Oh, okay. Well, Doug, is there any reason we couldn't just put in the information that we send out that they should, if they should request if some other interview arrangement is required or requested or something like that? Put it in our initial contact to them when we schedule our interview.
certainly, Mike. I don't know if Francis or Terry had some comments at this point before you do that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see that. Go ahead.
I just wanted to support what Gloria just stated. I think that we have a social responsibility to offer that. Maybe we would like for you to show up in person, but if that's not, if you're uncomfortable with that, we can also conduct a video interview. And then Doug, I wondered if we might be able to get away with face shields for the purposes of the interview, and then perhaps put cloth masks on when we weren't actively questioning and hearing someone's presentation.
We can make it work.
The real question is how are they going to look? Are they going to feel weird wearing a mask to be interviewed? So that's a good point, Francis.
Well, I gotta tell you that I agree with Gerald that I'd kind of like to be able to see people's faces, and I'd like for them to be able to see mine. I wish we could. I would prefer that the person talking, either the person being interviewed or the interviewer who is doing the talking, be able to do it without mask on. I don't. Maybe that's not possible, but I think Gary's right about that.
Terry, go ahead.
I've just second and third that, you know, we learn in trial ad 101, Mike, that it's good to be able to see the facial reactions and body language. Of course, we can see the body language, but facial reactions, you get a lot of things, a lot of social cues from people's facial reactions that are hidden when you do a mask. And we wrote a lengthy report. I was on the committee that wrote the report for how we ought to be reopening jury trials. And my recollection is that one of the recommendations was that we find a way to allow the actual witnesses who are testifying, which would be
Yes.
similar to the candidates who are applying here at their interviews, to testify without a mask on, so that jurors can evaluate those kinds of things, because that's really what trials are, is who's telling the truth and who isn't. Not here we don't have so much who's telling the truth, but you know, who's more genuine, or who are the people that we really are attracted to for their abilities. And some of those things you can learn by facial expressions.
I agree.
So Doug, what can we do?
I think you're going to have to give us a chance to make sure that we get it all straightened out. Like I said, I think we can set up, I mean, we have shields that, go ahead, Carol, before I start talking.
The only comment I'd like to make is if people are going to be talking, either the interviewee or commission members without a mask, I think we need to consider more than 6 feet distance.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And I guess I did see one of the applicants' name that said that they would be willing to come if they could have a mask and social distancing. So I think that's going to be a problem of an in-person meeting. They were willing to come in person with a mask and social distancing. So maybe in order to see the person's face and discuss, a Zoom meeting would be the way to see that without a mask and see the expression, because that would cover both. I don't know. That's just a thought too.
Gloria?
I wish there were a way, Doug, I wish there were a way that we could have the persons speaking, either the interviewer or probably the interviewee for the whole interview, be able to do it without a mask.
You guys,
I mean, hell, they're 30 feet away. I mean, we can barely, the way we've got it set up before, we're definitely accomplishing social distancing.
yeah, you guys got a month to do your investigation. I got a month to figure this one out. So, Gloria, go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, since if the building is still closed on October, is it 5th, whatever date we picked, will the public be allowed to come to hear the interviews, or are we going to video it so they can watch it from a remote place? Because that takes even more setup if there's public sitting in the back of the room.
That room that you guys were in, that you did your interviews last time, opens up to almost double its size. So we would put the public all the way back. And so we can keep them far enough back. And I will say that the canvassing that we did for Katie's election to this commission was done in that room. And we opened up the building, and for that day, for that period of time, we made the public allowed to come in and watch. And so we can get accommodations. Like I said, the building is not closed, but it's open by appointment only. So Gloria, I think we're okay with the public as far as that concerned. And it's keeping them at a really, really great distance back from you guys.
All right. We'll just let you do your best on that then, Doug.
And I'll have
you know what we expect from that. Yeah.
I'll get you guys a report in a couple of weeks as to what we figure out. So Dennis,
Okay.
Something?
Yes, I would concur with Jerry and Terry in terms of maskless interviews for both the interviewees and the interviewers. I think it's a much more effective way, and I'm not the least bit concerned about the distancing. So I'm sure we can figure that out, and I would recommend that we prefer that the candidates do appear here or in the meeting room. And one of the big reasons for that is you're already experiencing here, and I've had other Zoom meetings where we lose connections. We have problems with hearing people routinely. This is an alternative method of communication, but it is certainly not optimum, and I think we need optimum. So I would recommend that all the candidates appear in person and that we conduct the meeting in that fashion.
I think your hardest problem is going to be getting 6 feet between each of us.
I think we can do that. I think I'll give you a report in 2 weeks. How about that?
Well, I think Doug knows what we want, and incidentally, I agree with Dennis, but I think Doug knows what we want, and he's going to get us the best of that he can, hopefully all of it.
The next thing on agenda, Mike, was the background investigations. In the checklist that was put in the OneDrive, I dropped in the checklist that we use for that. So if you get into that, you can see the checklist of reports that we do for Katie and Carol's benefit. For attorneys, we're going to have a check with the Disciplinary Administrator's Office, which is the regulatory agency for the attorneys in Kansas, as to whether there have been complaints or anything filed against the attorneys. For judges, Michelle is in charge of a similar type of commission for the judges, as to whether there are complaints that are done or made against the judge. We do a credit report check, a financial check also on their background. And then we now do our social media background check with a social media vendor. And so we will get all those reports and investigations done and to you guys in those reports. And then the next thing on there is the assignments that you have. It was in your OneDrive folder, the assignments. I wanted to talk a little bit about how I did the assignments. I tried to give it, since we had some carryover from the first 2 sets of interviews and investigations, I tried to put the candidate with a new set of folks. And so it always didn't work out that you got everybody in your congressional district. And so I tried to do that first. And then second, I tried to get a new set of eyes on the applicant. And then there are 9 of you and 11 interviews, or 11 candidates. And so there are 8 of you, 8 of you that are doing the investigations. And so 3 of you, which I gave to the attorney, just because that was easiest to give it to the attorney. And so that's how I made the assignments. You guys can see the assignments. If anybody has any problem, we did make some, we did switch it around last time if anybody has anything. The person who is listed first is considered the lead investigator and the one who's going to prepare the report on that candidate. And then obviously the second person is the person who is in their congressional district for that investigation. So those are the assignments that I said. I'm not going to say those, but if anybody has any conflicts with those, we can switch them around and people can make adjustments however you want. There's no set rhyme or reason, but that was my philosophy on how I made those assignments.
If any of you do want to change for whatever reason, try to let us know that within the next few days, certainly within a week, don't you think, Doug, so that you can make the changes. And I don't even have them before me, so I don't have any problem with it.
Carol, did you have something? You're muted, Carol.
Did you say it was in the folder?
Yeah, in that same OneDrive folder where you have the agenda and everything for this meeting, there's a new file in there called Secretary's Checklist. And so, I'm sorry, in that folder is the investigation assignments, the proposed narrative. Do you see that in there? It should be in the meeting materials for 9-4.
Oh, okay.
And there's a tentative assignment. And so that's what I was talking about there.
Oh, okay.
So that's a breakdown of the assignments. Linda?
Okay, thank you.
Doug, in view of the fact with Judge Kudney, or Kudney, however you pronounce it, that I had a prior, right. I don't want there to be any hint of conflict of interest. So as much as I would like to do it, I just don't think it's the right thing to do.
And that's fine, Linda. And I can, since Jerry is the lead investigator on that, unless Jerry has a conflict, unless Jerry would have a conflict, certainly switch I'm going to call the second person with somebody else, unless Jerry does not want that investigation. But it made sense for me to do that way for Jerry's benefit. But we can switch you as the secondary on that and give you somebody else. That won't be a problem.
Well, Jerry, what do you think?
Well, Linda, first of all, I think that your contacts with Ms. Cudney are remote for purposes of our work. I realize, and I followed the string of emails that you sent me as a courtesy to Chairman Stout. Right. I don't think you have any conflict. I don't think you have any problems. And if you prepare not to sign off on my report, I understand that. I think we've worked well as a team, Linda, and I would encourage you to sign off on my report and assist me in making the lead investigator of Judge Cudney, and I think it would be beneficial to the commission for you to do so. I have great confidence that you can separate the two.
All right, I appreciate it. For the benefit of the commission, Judge, she did purchase a property through my company with one of my agents. I did not meet her personally. I signed off on the transaction, but I did not have any personal interaction with her, and I do not know her. So just so you know.
Was everybody able to see that document?
I have not been able to get that.
Were you able to open your OneDrive, Dennis?
Yes, I'm looking at it. I don't see anything about, I've got buyer applicants. I've got meetings and conference calls from July. But the only thing that I've got in my OneDrive here is August 24th. Buyer applicants. and it's just the applicants themselves. And
Were you-
not seeing,
Okay. I can email you that really quick if that would help.
well, or you can just tell me who I've been assigned to and my attorney counterpart as well.
Dennis, why don't we talk after this is over? This is Gloria,
Okay.
since we're teaming.
Dennis, do you have a meeting and conference call folder in your OneDrive?
In your OneDrive?
In your OneDrive, it should be a folder that says meetings and conference calls.
Yes, yes,
Click
yes, that's
that,
July 24th. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry.
and then it should say 9/4.
Yeah, okay.
9/4.
Got it. Okay, I'm sorry. I do have it. I'm looking at it.
Okay.
Okay.
Like I said, that
Thank
was
you.
just a tentative set of assignments that I gave to everybody, and that was my philosophy. If anybody has any other conflicts that they need to change, we can certainly do that. Otherwise, that was my philosophy on how I did that. Well, it sounds like we're all good on the assignments then, Mike.
Okay. What else we have here?
The next was the voting
Voting
procedure.
procedures.
This is just information purposes there, that you would decide your voting procedure at October. This is just more informative. And then the second question that you'll need to decide there is whether you want me to call out the vote by ballot by the person who actually made the votes. So those are just voting procedure things for you guys to be thinking about before you get to the meeting, because those are things that I need to know how you want to do it. I don't know if it's on Mike's agenda or not, but the next thing was accommodations and dinner. We will put you guys up in the hotel, probably the same hotel that you were at before, unless anybody had any conflicts with that hotel. We will probably put you there before. Mike, I'll let you go on whether you think that everybody wanted to get together for a dinner on Sunday night.
Well, I wasn't necessarily thinking that you had to buy our dinner, but I thought with new members on the commission, I thought it'd be a good idea if we had an opportunity to get together if we wanted to. I don't know whether everybody will want to or not, but I thought you ought to set something up that we could go, not as a meeting necessarily, but just as an opportunity for everybody to meet our new members before we started working.
And we will set that up and certainly make that an option for everybody. And you guys can decide how you want to handle that, but we will set a location. It won't be a meeting. As long as you guys promise not to talk any business, it will be just fine. And so, but I will set up a meeting, or excuse me, set up a location, a restaurant for an informal gathering on that Sunday night if you guys want to attend. Let's see, the last couple of things were just miscellaneous things, Mike. I can run over those too. We will take public comments for Katie and Carol's benefit. People cannot raise any questions or comments at the interviews with the candidates, but we've done the policy of if anybody has a question or comments they wanted to make on a candidate, they could do so by written communication to the commission and do so within a week before the interviews. So you would have that. So that just allows the public any input, perhaps that they had, if somebody wants to comment, they would do that by written communication to the commission. By the same token, some candidates have their reference letters come in up until the time of the interviews, and commission in the past has decided to take those, not just those submitted with the application. So we will continue the policy of taking reference letters and letting you guys know when those have been added to the OneDrive if reference letters come in for applicants up to the date of the interview. And then lastly is that we do not plan on giving you guys any hard copy of materials, but if you want them, we can certainly get them to you. If you need that, we're happy to do it. But the commission has
I'm on another line. Can I call you back in a little bit? Okay.
Most people have done it by electric in the past but we can certainly have a hard copy of everything here if you need it. And let me get Mike back unmuted. Mike, I muted you if you want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I had a call that couldn't go away.
And so again, if anybody wants hard copies or you want hard copies of anything, we can certainly send that to you. Just let us know. Those are all the things, Mike, that I had on the agenda, and that we're certainly open for any other business that the commission has.
Do you have anything else? Anyone want to bring up anything else?
Larry, you're muted.
Sure. I just wanted to make a comment, and I hope no one would take from this comment that that we have some excellent candidates, but there are only 11 of them. In my view, in an ideal world, we would have dozens of qualified candidates. So I'm disappointed that there are only 11. And I just pulled up the 2020 compilation report from the National Center for State Courts, which advises courts across the country, Supreme Courts and lower courts across the country, about policy issues so that they can sort of come together and discuss things that are important to the administration of justice. Kansas ranks 50th in our Supreme Court pay. And my suspicion is that several people are self-selecting. And this is always a tough issue because $142,000 is a lot of money to most Kansans. But at the same time, we want to try to attract the best candidates. And I'll tell you that a federal magistrate judge who also has an important job, but that job is handling discovery disputes and first appearances in criminal cases. A federal magistrate judge makes over $190,000. And our state Supreme Court judges make only $142,000. To give you a comparison, in nearby states, Missouri pays 183, Oklahoma 161, Nebraska 187, Colorado 188. So we are obviously significantly below the mean. This isn't really our issue in terms of deciding what the pay ought to be, but it does seem to be our issue that we would want to attract the best candidates. And to me, if we could pay a little bit more, that would help attract more applicants.
You are absolutely right on that. I'm sure that's affecting us, and it's a negative thing that I wouldn't think anyone in Kansas would want to occur. But as you say, we're not the people that can do anything about it. Does anyone else have a comment on Terry's point?
Other than the 20 articles I've written about it on judicial pay in Kansas, I think our new members should know that it's going to be a question to the chief at 8:15 the morning we get there, because this simmering issue has been ignored by the people on the north side of 10th Street, and that's outside of our bailiwick.
Carol?
The question I have is about the assignments, and is Judge Standridge on the Court of Appeals?
She is, Carol.
Okay, I have met her, and she has used our lake house because my husband was served as on the Court of Appeals occasionally, and so I met her. I don't know her that well, but I don't know if that's any kind of conflict or not.
Well, I can say from my standpoint that I don't think it is. I think I told Linda on her real estate issue that she raised, I think you have an obligation to do what you just did, which is tell us about it. But I don't personally see it as any responsibility of you that you should disqualify yourself. And I think it's your choice to make, but I personally do not think that should be something that would disqualify you from serving as an evaluator of her ability.
Okay, I don't know her well enough that I feel like I can be impartial on that.
Well, I would hope so, and I want you to participate, frankly, and so I would discourage you from disqualifying yourself, as I did Linda. Anything else?
So, Carol, those of us who have practiced law for a long time know a number of these people, but only if I feel like they're close enough that I would be biased would I disqualify myself.
Yeah. Anything else anyone have? Doug, have we run through our list?
You've come through my list, Mike. Thank you.
Okay. Well, as far as I'm concerned, then it's appropriate for us to adjourn, and I'll see you all at the party that Doug hasn't planned yet.
Again, happy birthday, Terry. Have a great.
Take it low.
Thank you,
Happy
guys.
birthday.
Have a great weekend. Have a
Happy
great.
Thank you all.
birthday, Terry.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
great
Bye,
Labor Day
guys.
weekend.
Bye.
Bye all.
Bye.